From Governor's Comedy Club in Levittown, this is Sports Bash, presented by TicketBash.com. TicketBash.com, where memories are made affordable and where you'll never pay a service fee. Sports Bash is also presented by Ryan Anthony's Heating and Air Conditioning Service, keeping Long Island warm for over 18 years, serving their customers in Nassau and Suffolk with pride, honesty, and integrity. For more information, visit www.liboilers.com. Sports Bash is brought to you by the Embassy Diner, located at 4280 Hempstead Turnpike in Bethpage. Every customer is considered family at the Embassy Diner. Mention Sports Bash, get a free dessert with your meal. By Coach's Collectibles, your number one source for 100% authentic sports memorabilia and live public autograph events. Check them out online at coachescollectiblesny.com. And make sure you are using the code SPORTSBASH to get free shipping on your orders from Coach's Collectibles. And by the Marty Lyons Foundation, the official charity of Sports Bash Media. For more information, go to martylyonsfoundation.org. Well, hi again, everyone. I am Peter Schwartz. Welcome to the program. You are subscribed. Make sure you are subscribing to Govs Comedy Club podcast channel on YouTube and follow Sports Bash Media on X, Instagram, and Facebook. Welcome inside the studios here at Governor's Comedy Club podcast. Coming up, we have a terrific show for you today. I'll be joined by author Brian Solomon about his new book that I got right here, Irresistible Force, The Life and Times of Gorilla Monsoon. And if you're like myself and you grew up a wrestling fan, there wasn't a more likable personality on WWF back in the day, then became WWE, but Gorilla Monsoon was an accomplished wrestler and really became a fan favorite and endeared personality when he became a broadcaster for WWF, and then he ultimately became the president of the WWF, an on-screen character. And unfortunately, he's no longer with us. And a great book by Brian Solomon. We'll talk about that with him coming up on the show later on in the program. And if you follow me on social media, and if you're not, you should. Shame on you if you're not. We became a broad.
Sorry, go ahead.
I heard myself in your rerun. If you follow me on social media, last Thursday, Pat LaFontaine, the former Islanders great, was inducted into, well, the Islanders announced he will be inducted into the Islanders Hall of Fame on December 13th, and I did an interview with him at the Companions Encourage Golf outing, and I posted it on social media just for the purposes of our show. We're going to play that interview back for you. I know my mother's excited about it because she's not on social media, so she couldn't watch it. So she's looking forward to watching the interview here on the show later today. So and I have some other thoughts on Pat LaFontaine getting in. So well-deserved, long overdue, but I'm going to save a lot of my other comments for the last segment of the show when we play the interview. So we're also going to have the Sports Bash Media poll question of the day. It is Mets related, and I know that Tony Walker, my producer Tony, and the host of the Knock 'em Dead comedy show from 11 to 12:30 every Monday through Friday here on the show. And I did get one of the questions right on trivia.
Yes, you did.
I did, and one I did. I knew the Big was the Tom Hanks movie, but I was driving and I couldn't. When we play, I couldn't answer that one. I got one in. I think I was right on it. But that was a good trivia segment on the show today. But you'll be interested in the poll question of the day because it is Mets related a little bit later on in the show. We're also going to have the Coach's Collectibles items of the week. And it is items of the week this week. Our good friend Dom at Coach's Collectibles, he provides us with the pictures and the items. He sent me two based on the subject I wanted it on today. And he sent me two. And I'm like, you know what? Let's just use both of them. And we're going to do that a little bit later on in the program. As you can see, I'm decked out in my Yankees stuff today. And I'll get to the Yankees in a second as they open up the wild card round against the Red Sox tonight at Yankee Stadium. But I wanted to start with a really good decision that I made yesterday. And in the course of my 58 years on planet Earth, I think we could all feel this way. I think everybody questions some decisions you make in life along the way. Did you eat the right thing for lunch? Did you exercise enough? Was that a smart purchase that you made? So there's certain decisions that you make in life that I think always come back to either bite you in the ass or you question and you have to live with it. I made a decision yesterday that I am so proud of myself for making this decision, and I want to pound my chest about it today, if it's okay, if you will indulge me for a couple of minutes on that. I made some stupid. By the way, this was a smart decision that I made in my life because I listened to my father on this. But a dumb decision, and I've talked about this on the show before, was I defied my father, who was a Giants fan, and I became a Jets fan. He took me to my first game at Shea, and I just fell in love with the Jets. Stupid me. And that led me to, I think, one of the great decisions I have made in my life that I made yesterday. And when I talk about the great decisions, obviously it was asking my wife to marry me, and thank God I did that. And certain jobs and other decisions I'm very proud of. But I am, for the moment, again, I'm bound to make another dumb decision at some point, but I am very proud of the decision I made last night. I decided to go to the Islanders-Rangers exhibition game at UBS Arena instead of staying home and watching the Jet game. I immediately knew last week that this is what I wanted to do. I shared that view with my family, with friends, with coworkers, and a lot of it was met with, you're really going to not watch the Jet game to go to an Islanders-Rangers exhibition game? And I said, yeah. I needed a cleansing yesterday. I needed a very good cleansing because, and you've heard me talk about the Jets here on the show, and I thought I was going to come into the season so relaxed about the Jets, and they've ripped my heart out again, and I have now promised myself I am not going to let the New York Jets football team dictate the happiness of my life or lack thereof. Like, I am not going to get myself suckered. If there's something else going on that will make me happier, and it starts with my family, like if there's an opportunity to go do something with my family, I will go do that. If there is an opportunity to do another sporting type thing and avoid the Jets, I'm going to do it. And that's what I did last night. And I was so happy with myself. I woke up this morning with a smile on my face, but I can't be a complete hypocrite. It was like around 7:20, 7:25, first period. I'm sitting in the press box at UBS Arena last night, and I couldn't help myself. I grabbed my phone, I went to ESPN app, and I put the Jet game on for a couple of minutes while I was watching the Islander game. And I'm like, oh, this is interesting. They were down 3-0, and they're moving the ball down the field. I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to watch this drive. And I'll get back to focusing 100% on the Islander game. And, of course, what happens, Braylon Allen fumbles at the 4-yard line on the way into the end zone for a touchdown. And I said, stupid me. I did it again to myself. That's it. I turned it off. Didn't even pay attention to it. But I am so happy with my decision to go, even though the Islanders lost to the Rangers 3-2 in overtime. It was a really entertaining hockey game for a preseason game, and I was happy with it. I don't feel like I missed out on anything. I certainly didn't. The Jets are a complete embarrassment and a laughingstock. And my wife tried to have a very, very poignant and serious conversation about this morning. We're actually watching the Today Show. And that's our time in the morning before she has to go to work and before I go to work, because we both work from home, so we kind of like joke. Cheryl will get up from the couch and say, "Okay, I'm going to work." I'm like, "Be careful when you go down the hallway. Just be careful." And she'll say like, "You'll be careful, walking into your area there too." And then we'll see each other for lunch, whatever. But while we were watching TV, my wife wanted to have a serious Jets conversation with me, which is I love my wife so much, and the fact that we can have a serious sports conversation, like a lot of guys probably are very jealous about that. And she said, I want to ask you a question about the Jets, and I don't want you to just say they suck, because if you say they suck, we're never going to talk about this again. I want to have a real serious conversation. I said, sure, what's the question? Why are the Jets always so bad? I said, whoa. now you're going to make me go into a radio monologue here in the house. And I thought about it, and I shared a couple of different thoughts on it, but here's my radio version. Like if someone, like Tony, ask me why the Jets are always so bad.
Peter, why are the Jets always so bad?
I'm going to answer that question for you, Tony, and here's what the answer is. The Jets are cursed. They've been cursed since Joe Namath guaranteed the Super Bowl in Super Bowl III. And since that time, they have predominantly been a cursed franchise. And here's what I would do. Because every decision they make is the wrong decision. Whether it's hiring the GM, hiring the coach, hiring the janitor, hiring the PR person, hiring the chef, hiring the person who paints the lines on the field, sharing a stadium with the Giants, building your practice facility in New Jersey. Every decision that the Jets have made since they hired Weeb Ewbank as head coach in the 60s and drafted Joe Namath, just about every decision they've made. Now, they've made some good decisions. I mean, they had some good players over the years, and they've gotten to the AFC Championship game a few times. But for the most part, this has been a cursed franchise. And if I won the lottery tomorrow, and I had the money to buy the New York Jets, here's how Peter Schwartz, I don't talk in the third person very often, but first person. When you talk about yourself, is that first person or third person?
I believe it's first.
First person. I don't talk about the first person too much, but I'll say it here. If I won the lottery and I had the money to buy the New York Jets, here's the Peter Schwartz plan to fix the New York Jets. A complete and total extermination and exorcism of the entire New York Jets organization. And that is from top to bottom. Now, at the very top, we will have eliminated the owner because the owner, Woody Johnson, would have sold me the team. Now I get to do whatever I want to do. And here's what I would do. I literally would treat the New York Jets as an expansion team. I would let go of everybody. And I mean from the general manager down to the janitors, down to the interns, down to the people who cook the food, the people who, I said, paint the lines on the field, the people who deliver mail to the facility. I mean, everybody gone. And I'm going to bring in my own people. Because that's the only way to exorcise the demons that have infiltrated the New York Jets. It's the only way to do it. Because you can keep changing some of the names, but some of the names who have been around the team and part of the poison continue to put this disease in the New York Jets. And when I say a complete and total exorcism and an extermination, that also means their facility. So I would make sure everybody is out of One Jets Drive in New Jersey, and I would blow the whole thing up. And let it be somebody else's problem, because what I would do then is I would move the Jets back to New York. I would build a stadium in Queens or on Long Island, and I would build a practice facility in Queens or Long Island. And I think those things, and hiring the right general manager, and then I'm going to stay out of the way. The first decision is I'm hiring the general manager. Well, actually, the first decision is if I buy the team, I have to have a PR person to do all the announcements. So I literally would have to hire a PR person first. I think I'd hire a PR person first. Then I'd hire a director of sales and let them fill out their departments. And then I would hire the general manager. And I would say, I'm giving you the keys to the football operations. You go ahead and just hire the coach, hire the scouts, whatever you need, I got it for you. And I believe that would be the foolproof plan to fix the New York Jets. If I wanted to sound political, that would be my plan to make the New York Jets great again. But I'm not going to go down that road. But that's what I would do. That's the only way to fix the Jets. Blow the whole thing up, start from scratch like an expansion team. And that's all I want to say about that. I was going to talk about the Mets for a little bit, but I'll talk about it in a little while, maybe when we do the poll question of the day. Because something happened yesterday, and I'm not a Mets fan, as you know, but David Stearns really pissed me off yesterday. I'll talk about it when we do the poll question later. I'll save the Mets for later because, I got to get the Yankees in here in the next 3 minutes before Brian Solomon joins us. But, of course, today is Game 1, Yankees and the Red Sox in the wild card round. Max Fried against Garrett Crochet. I think this is going to be a 3-game series. I think the Yankees will win in 3. And we'll see where the Yankees go from there. They finished up the regular season very strong. I'm very happy about that. I did not think that was going to happen 2 weeks ago. I thought the Yankees were dead in the water. Not that they would make the playoffs, but I just felt like there would be no chance of them at least getting back to the World Series. And now, listen, 2 out of 3, you never know what could happen. But I think the Yankees will beat the Red Sox in the first round. And we'll see what happens from there. But I'm very excited about the Yankees going into the playoffs, Game 1 tonight at 6 o'clock. And here's something that I do, and before we go to a break, because Brian is on, we're going to take a quick break after I make my point here, and then we're going to get to Brian Solomon. When I was a little boy, and again, I followed my father being a Yankee fan, which was the smart decision to make, unlike the other decision I made sports-wise when I was little. But when I was little, my grandpa Dave gave me a gift that I have had since I was probably 6 or 7 years old, I think, when he gave it to me. Maybe I was a little bit older. I don't remember. But I brought it with me today, and I like to play show and tell here on the program every now and then. Tony likes it too because he thinks it's cool.
I do.
So my grandfather, and Tony, you'll let me know if the camera's getting a good shot at this or not.
Okay.
This Yankee pennant that my grandpa Dave gave me when I was a little boy, this is my most cherished piece of sports memorabilia that I own. I will never sell this. And my kids are Met fans, but I hope they will take this from me one day, even though they don't like the Yankees. But I'm trying to find out still, and I have to get Dom at Coach's Collectibles to take a look at this. I would like to find out 2 things. Number one, exactly what year this is from. I saw something in the Yankee Museum at Yankee Stadium a few years ago. It looked similar, and it was in the 1920s segment of the museum. But I'd like to know what it's worth, number one. Not that I'm getting rid of it. I'm not. And number two, number one, I'd like to know what year it's from. And number two, I'd like to know how much it's worth. Because then once I know exactly what it's worth and what year it's from, my plan is to put this in a really nice frame, get it matted with pinstripes, make it look like it's floating. I know it's going to cost an arm and a leg to get that done, but I want to make sure I get it appraised first. But this pennant means a lot to me, and I bring it out. I post it on social media every year when the Yankees are in the playoffs, with the hope that it gives them a little bit of juice to win a World Series. So I figured now having the platform of this show, I am going to. I was going to bring it in today. The microphone was blocking some of it, I think, right? Let me just move it down. Can you get the whole thing in there now? Is the whole thing in?
Yeah, there you go.
There you go, right there. Okay. It's a beautiful thing. Tony, I know you're a Met fan, but you have to admire it.
Oh, absolutely.
Isn't it beautiful?
Yes.
Nice felt. I've had it in this, plastic thing for a while, but I'm going to get this framed at some point. You know what? Brian is waiting. We'll get the break a little bit later on. Let's get right to our first guest on the show. And you've heard me talk on the show. We like to delve off into other things once in a while. And one of the things we like to talk about from time to time here on the program is professional wrestling. I grew up as a kid watching it, loving it, the old WWF, and I've started to get back into it, following on social media. I've been to a couple of wrestling events, and we'll talk later in the show about the local event that we were at on Saturday night with our good friend Sean Wachter. But one of the great personalities that I loved growing up was Gorilla Monsoon, especially when he was a WWF announcer. And there's this great book called Irresistible Force, The Life and Times of Gorilla Monsoon. And the author is Brian Solomon. And Brian joins us here on Sports Bash today to talk about it. Brian, it's Peter. How are you?
Peter, it's great to be here. I'm happy to be here to talk about the book. But quickly, I just thought I'd throw my 2 cents in and say that I am also very excited that the Yankees are in the postseason.
Mm-hmm.
I would have been a little more happy and secure if they won the division outright. But if the Blue Jays just lost that game when the Yankees won, but I'll take it, and hopefully they get 2 out of 3 over the Red Sox, and away we go.
Well, so what I'll say about that, Brian, is that I know a lot of people were angry at the Rays for not winning one of those games over the weekend. but how many games did the Yankees blow during the course of the season? You know, how many games? So you can't really look back on it, but the bottom line is they are rolling going into the playoffs, so I feel good about it.
Yeah, me too. I had written them off like you, so I'm not going to take it for granted. I'm happy.
Yeah,
I'm happy.
Absolutely, and hopefully they can be wearing the championship belts at the end of the season. We'll see what happens, just to get us back on the pro wrestling life. Tell me about the book. I've looked through it. It's a great read, a great book about a character and a person that I think is probably one of the most beloved figures in the history of pro wrestling. What was it about Gorilla Monsoon that made you want to write this book about him?
Just, I worked for WWE for a number of years, and I was there from 2000 to 2007. And so he had passed away by the time I got there. He just passed. But initially, what struck me was how universally loved he was and how everyone would talk about him. And there were still plenty of people there that had known him and worked with him. And just speaking of him in such glowing terms, I started to get more interested in the real person behind the character that I grew up with on TV, And I liked the idea of doing this book about him because at the same time, I could also tell the history of the WWF through all those years as it grew, because he came on board in 1963, which is the same year that Bruno Sammartino won the title and the same year they come out with the whole WWF name.
Yeah.
And he was there right up to the end of the century. So I thought I could sort of intertwine these two things together.
How close, how similar is Gorilla Monsoon to the real life Robert Gino Morella, his real name?
Yep, Robert Gino Morella. I think that they were very similar. I do. And it's funny because the last wrestling book I did was on the original Sheik, who was playing this larger-than-life character that was nothing like the man that he was in everyday life. That really wasn't the case here. I mean, granted, in the early years when he was the Manchurian Giant and he was this monster heel that didn't talk, that wasn't the real Robert Morella. But he became himself to the point where his daughter Valerie, who was so helpful with this book, told me that that's how he spoke in everyday life. Those expressions, those sayings, those cliches, he would use them for real, give me a break and will you stop and all the stuff about the different parts of the body. Like that is how he talked.
And that was a big shot there to the lower lumbar region.
That's right. And the lateral and collateral ligaments and the intercostal cartilage. It was like an anatomy lesson.
You know what? One of my favorite moments with Gorilla Monsoon was when he hosted Primetime Wrestling with Bobby Heenan. And they had that whole storyline where Bobby Heenan faked that neck injury, and they had that stupid Dr. Dusseldorf, whatever it was, that came on with his dog. And Gorilla Monsoon was so funny, not buying any of it and calling the doctor a fraud and making fun of the dog and everything like that. So I guess that's just part and parcel. Like he had to have a doctor segment because he was always talking about parts of the body.
Yeah, and those, it's funny, one of the things I discovered when I was researching his early life and his academic career was in college. So he was studying physical education. That was his original idea. He was going to be a phys ed instructor, a football coach, all that kind of stuff. And his minor was in biology. And so I really think that he was learning all these anatomical terms in school, and he just remembered all these words and terms.
Unbelievable. He was one of a kind, no question about it. The book is called Irresistible Force: The Life and Times of Gorilla Monsoon, written by Brian Solomon, who is my guest here on the show. And when you think of the name of your book, and I thought it was brilliant that was the name of the book, Irresistible Force. Clearly, one of the most memorable matches that Gorilla ever called was the Hulk versus Andre, Hulk Hogan against Andre the Giant at WrestleMania 3 in front of 93,000 people at the Pontiac Silverdome. And if people who have seen the match, you see the beginning of the match, and that's where you got the two of them staring each other down in the ring, and Gorilla Monsoon says it's the irresistible force meeting the immovable object. And I thought that was genius on your part to name the book Irresistible Force.
Yeah, I wanted to take the name of the book from some expression of his. but I wanted it to be something that actually meant something, that applied to who he was as a person too. And I thought Irresistible Force fit that, because that's what he was in the business. And, and that call, that WrestleMania 3 call, that kind of immortalized him almost in the same way it immortalized Hogan and Andre in that moment. It's to this day one of the most replayed, reheard moments and clips that fans, I'm sure, who are way too young to know him from his career, whose parents may even be too young to know him at this point, they know that voice and they know the clips. They've heard it before. That's really cool.
Yeah, I thought his play-by-play, when he became a play-by-play announcer, and if you think about the history of pro wrestling, there have been so many legendary people who have called play-by-play, whether it was Jim Ross or Tony Schiavone and Gordon Soley for people who followed Georgia wrestling down south. But there were so many legendary, even Vince McMahon. Vince McMahon, he became, obviously was the owner of the WWF and then WWE and the chairman, and became the Mr. McMahon character. I always will consider, like, if you're looking for one of the all-time great play-by-play guys in wrestling history, Vince McMahon was awesome during doing play-by-play. But I think Gorilla Monsoon brought a little different perspective and a little different dimension to calling a wrestling match. We joked before about the body parts, but I mean, when you heard him calling a match, it was like you were listening to Pat Summerall calling a Super Bowl. That's what it was like.
It was a voice of authority. That's the thing. And it's interesting because Vince McMahon, like you said, he had been the voice of the company even before he owned it. So all through the 70s, through the early 80s, it was a one-man show. I mean, at one point he took over both weekly shows. He was doing the Garden shows all by himself, no color person.
Right.
And so when he took over, he didn't want to have to do all that. So he was doing some of it. And Gorilla was the first person that he trusted fully to take over some of those responsibilities. And like you said, Pat Summerall, that's the thing with Gorilla. Everybody remembers the funny stuff, but he tried to call it like a sport. From the voice of authority of someone who had done it.
Yeah.
And when you heard him, you may not have known all the details of his wrestling career and what he did, but you definitely got the sense he had done it. He'd been in there and he knew. And part of that was, if something was not done right or messed up or not effective, he would call that.
Yeah.
That's something announcers don't really do anymore in wrestling. But if you think about it, I mean, you're sports guys, if you're watching a ball game, they're going to call out the team if they screw something up. They're not going to gloss over it, And I know in wrestling, they're taught to cover for the guy's shortcomings.
Yeah.
But Gorilla took the approach, I want the listeners to respect me and my authority. So they could see that something's BS. I'm going to call it. Right.
No question about it. And the great thing about Gorilla Monsoon calling the matches was that he had such tremendous chemistry with whoever he called the matches with. And, he did a lot with Lord Alfred Hayes. I think with Superstar Billy Graham did some matches with him. But it was really with Jesse Ventura and Bobby Heenan where he really, that created like the A team, the A broadcast team for WWF. In your research for the book, did you ever find out who did he was very good friends with Bobby Heenan for a long time. But did he have a preference? Did you find out if he enjoyed doing the matches with Bobby Heenan more or with Jesse Ventura more?
Well, I love both teams. I know a lot of people love both teams. They were both great. Yeah. But as far as Gorilla's preference, he definitely preferred Bobby.
Yeah.
Definitely. Because Bobby Heenan was his very best friend. I mean, they were as close as can be. And they had never met before Bobby came to the WWF. They had never had reason to cross paths, and they were never in the same place at the same time. And they came to truly, genuinely love each other. And I got this from so many people to the point, they just had so much fun together.
Yeah.
Like you talk about prime time, that became both of them, their favorite part of their job was that they got to keep doing that. And as the years went by and Bobby's not managing as much.
Right.
Gorilla is doing less and less. They just wanted to keep working together because that was the thing that they looked forward to doing the most. Even when WWE got their own TV studio in Stamford,
in
1988, So they were around. They didn't even have to go on the road as much anymore. That's all. That was the most important thing to them, going into that TV studio
Yeah.
and just having fun.
Well, didn't they have to go to
Yeah.
Baltimore? Did
Yes.
they have to travel to Baltimore to do primetime wrestling?
Yeah, at first. So basically, when Vince took over, there was this guy named Nelson Swegler who I talked to for the book. He was before Kevin Dunn. He was the top TV
Yeah.
guy they had, and he was initially independent. They were hiring him, and he had his studios down in Baltimore. And so even when Vince hired him full time, they were still using those studios, which they didn't own, and the equipment and staff that were not theirs. So it was Vince wanted to have everything in house so that and have it nearby to the office. So eventually they built that Stanford studio. They had their own staff, their own sets and equipment, and that's really like the golden age of their TV production. The late '80s, early '90s period where they had really perfected it.
When you think about the friendship between Gorilla Monsoon and Bobby Heenan, by the way, we're talking to Brian Solomon. He has the new book, Irresistible Force: The Life and Times of Gorilla Monsoon. When you put that friendship into perspective, it makes their final appearance together on TV all that more special, because at that time, Gorilla Monsoon was the character, the president of the World Wrestling Federation, and Bobby Heenan was doing Raw with Vince McMahon, and there is that iconic moment, and it was at the Westchester County Center where Raw was emanating from that night, where they had it planned out that Gorilla was going to fire Bobby Heenan because he was stealing, he was doing some really bad things in the storylines, and he actually threw him out of the Westchester County Center, and that was the end of Bobby Heenan's initial run with WWF. What were your thoughts on that, and how perfect that was for the way to get Bobby to leave WWF, and he would go on to WCW?
It was perfect, and I discovered that it was Bobby's idea. He had pitched that. He wanted to go out that way. And, by that point, like you said, Gorilla wasn't quite the president yet. That was 95, but they weren't working together as much anymore. They changed the format on primetime wrestling. They weren't doing that anymore. They were starting to move Gorilla off Challenge. JR had done Wrestling Challenge for a while. And so it was a moment of closure that Bobby Heenan wanted. And, when you go back and you watch these things now, because you talk about the friendship, when you're a kid, you don't pick up on that. You just see these two guys that seem to hate each other and get on each other's nerves, drive each other crazy. You watch it now and you can see the love. You can just see it, that they're trying not to laugh half the time, and they just love each other. And that also extends into that segment when Gorilla kicks him out, because it's emotional. It's funny, but at the same time it's emotional. Like, you can actually see that Bobby is emotional over this, and that some of that,
well, he does that salute when he's trying to get in the bus, and he kind of does that.
He does the little salute at the end, and it's kind of a poignant moment. In fact, both of the families were telling me that was hard for them to watch after it happened, because it was just so many different feelings that it brought up.
And didn't they went back to their hotel afterward, and they weren't, I don't think the original intention was for them to share some time together, but they wound up doing that. Didn't like Bobby Heenan send like bananas to Gorilla Monsoon's hotel room?
Yeah, and it was a funny thing because in the segment, Bobby says, "Hey, can anybody get me a lift to LaGuardia?" And ironically, it was Gorilla. They were riding together, after the cameras stopped, and they went back to the hotel. They were staying at the same hotel, and I wrote about it in detail in the book because Bobby had described it a couple times in interviews and in his book. And they're going up the elevator together, and they basically say, "Well, I guess this is it." And they go their separate ways. And then Bobby calls Gorilla because I guess he had some bananas or some fruit or something that had been delivered to the room, and he used it as a pretense. He said, "I got some bananas. Why don't you come down, you big ape?" And Gorilla comes down the hall, and they sat in the hall just talking and crying and just reminiscing. And it's this incredible moment of truly the end of an era.
What, Brian, what do you think Gorilla Monsoon would think of pro wrestling today, whether it was, the way WWE has evolved now, and, the emergence of AEW as the number 2 company? You've got TNA, you've got the independents. that are all over the country. What do you think Gorilla Monsoon would think of pro wrestling today?
I think he would kind of have two minds about it. I know content-wise, from a personal opinion perspective, I don't think that he would be thrilled with what it's turned into. Like, I know that he was not happy with the direction of the Attitude Era from a personal perspective. He was uncomfortable with some of the content and also the way the business had changed so much and how guys were working differently. And there was less wrestling on the shows and things like that. And it was getting to the point where it wasn't really what he recognized anymore. And it's changed even more since then. So I can only imagine. However, I want to kind of put a caveat on that, because the one thing about Gorilla was he was always very smart about the business, and he understood what the business was, that the purpose was to make money. And a lot of the old time guys recognize that. Like, for example, even, Patterson and Briscoe, those guys from the old guard who were right on board with Vince doing all that crazy stuff during the Attitude Era, they weren't thrilled about it either.
Right.
We're not. Pat Patterson had said in later years that he thought it had all turned into a circus, but they went with it because it's making money. You're supporting your company. What are you going to do? What are you going to walk out?
And he probably from remembering what he was like and reading the book and our conversation here, I would imagine that Gorilla would not be happy with the breaking of the pulling back the curtain and the fourth wall and all that stuff. And now you got WWE's got that Unreal show on Netflix, and we're talking about storylines and how this works, all that stuff. I would imagine he'd be livid about this.
He would. He'd be kind of horrified. And I want to explain that to people that don't understand why. Why do the old timers care so much? You got to understand, these men lived their life this way. They protected it with every ounce of everything they had because their livelihoods depended on it. Their money would have dried up. At least that was their fear, if the fans were in on the reality of it. I mean, every fan had their suspicions, but it wasn't pushed in their face.
Right.
They were not pushing it in your face. And so they sacrificed so much. A lot of these guys would even keep their families in the dark, their wives, their kids. And so it gives them a feeling now of, well, what did I do all that for? It was all a big joke, a big lie. Now, what did I sacrifice all that for? And you may take issue with that and say, well, they got to change with the times. But I'm at least trying to help people understand why they get so upset. And he would have been very upset.
Well, Brian, it would be like, it's no different than, an old Major League Baseball player not happy that the DH is in both leagues, or they went to a pitch clock, or now extra innings start with the ghost runner on second base. So everything in life evolves, but I would imagine if you're old school, then you want it to stay old school.
Yeah, I even talked in there briefly about the incident that they call the curtain call at Madison Square Garden, which happened, Gorilla was there, and I believe he was actually in the Gorilla position that night at the Garden. It was a Garden house show where, for people that don't know, you had heels and baby faces celebrating together in the ring because Scott Hall and Kevin Nash were leaving to go to WCW. So you had Triple H in there, you had Shawn Michaels, I think X-Pac might have been in there, I'm not sure. And they just completely threw kayfabe out the window. They figured it's a house show. It's not being filmed. Who cares? And
somebody filmed it.
It was filmed by a cam, some kind of cam. And the old time guys, because I think Briscoe told me this, somebody told me, they were furious. And actually Vince was too. Because Vince was from the old guard too, in a way. They were furious.
And Triple H paid the price for that? Wasn't Triple H? He was supposed to be on a run maybe to be king of the ring, and then they pulled that away from him.
Yeah, because Triple H was politically vulnerable. So Hall and Nash were leaving. Can't do anything to them. Shawn Michaels is the golden boy. He's the top star. They're not going to punish him. Triple H took the heat. Yeah, he got his whole push killed for about a year or more. Yeah.
Really quick, we got a minute left. Did Gorilla embrace the backstage area being called the Gorilla position?
That's a funny question. I don't know what he personally thought about it, but I will say, it was being called that all the way back into the 70s and early 80s. And so he had to be okay with it, or he would have discouraged it. He might have thought it was amusing. I heard from Bruce Pritchard that because Bruce Pritchard kind of took it over that they wanted to rename it at one point the Love Position because of Brother Love. And Bruce said, absolutely no way. It is always the Gorilla Position forever. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, listen, Brian, thank you so much for spending some time. Again, the book is called Irresistible Force, The Life and Times of Gorilla Monsoon, written by Brian Solomon, with the foreword written by one of my all-time favorite wrestlers, Bret the Hitman Hart. Brian, thank you so much. Best of luck with the book. How can people order it really quick?
Thank you, Pete. They can get it anywhere books are sold. Amazon, Barnes & Noble, order it online, print or digital. If your local store doesn't have it, ask them to order it.
Brian, this was a lot of fun. Let's do it again, and let's go Yankees, right?
You got it, yes.
Awesome. Brian Solomon. When we come back, lots more to do. Pat LaFontaine, Islanders great, is going to join me with an interview that we taped a few days ago. We're going to have that for you when we come back right after this.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Hi, I'm Peter Schwartz.
And I'm Vinny Tickets.
We want to take a moment to talk about our fantastic sponsor, the Embassy Diner.
Embassy Diner has been a beloved staple in the restaurant industry for over 50 years. And the great thing about it is when you walk through the door, you're not a customer. You are family. Every visit promises to be filled with warmth, love, and respect.
And here's an extra treat. If you mention Sports Bash during your visit, you enjoy a free dessert on the Embassy Diner.
Come on down to the Embassy Diner, where great food and great company are always on the menu.
Visit the Embassy Diner, located at 4280 Hempstead Turnpike in Bethpage. Hi. Welcome back to Sports Bash, presented by Ticketbash.com. This segment of Sports Bash presented by Ryan Anthony's Heating and Air Conditioning Service, keeping Long Island warm for over 18 years, serving their customers in Nassau and Suffolk with pride, honesty, and integrity. For more information, visit www.liboilers.com. Again, we thank Brian Solomon for joining us here on the show to talk about his new book, Irresistible Force, The Life and Times of Gorilla Monsoon. I was trying to figure out a way to keep my Yankee pennant here up on the thing. Let's see if my phone will help. We'll figure that out. We got to get to Pat LaFontaine anyway. I'm going to just put this down maybe when we come back after the interview. Before we get to the Pat LaFontaine interview, just to set this up a little bit, and could not be happier for any one individual. I got a chance to cover Pat LaFontaine during the end of his Islander career, and of course there was a lot of acrimony that was built up. You remember he. And just some Islander fans don't know this about him, but most Islander fans still love Pat LaFontaine because of what he did for the Islanders. But there are those who remember back then that, he forced a trade. He wanted to leave. Then he came back, was an advisor for Charles Wang, and then left again. All he does is leave the Islanders. Well, there were reasons why he left the Islanders. Number one, the original problem was that John Pickett, the Islander owner, back in 91, 92, right before that season, they had promised Pat LaFontaine a contract extension the season before, and he reneged on it. So as training camp opened up for the 91-92 season, Pat LaFontaine requested a trade, and he wound up getting traded to the Buffalo Sabres. He would eventually, at the end of his career, come back to the Islanders as an unpaid advisor to Charles Wang. Charles Wang wanted to fire Neil Smith. After just a couple of months on the job, Pat LaFontaine tried to talk him out of it. Charles said no. He fired Neil Smith. Pat LaFontaine said, if you're not going to listen to anything I have to say, out the door he went. So there was still all this acrimony, and it lasted all these years. And the Islanders, a couple of times, they tried to put it back together. Finally, John Ledecky and the Islander ownership group was able to have him back a couple of times at UBS Arena. They honored him right before the Coliseum closed the first time in 2015 with a night, and they never put him in the Hall of Fame. And if you know me and you follow me on social media and you've read my stories and you've heard me on this show, when people say to me, who's missing from the Islanders Hall of Fame? Well, it's Pat LaFontaine. There's other names too, and now I'm going to carry the banner for those people because I think I did my work very well here getting Pat. I'm not going to take responsibility and take the reasoning like, Peter complained about it, so the Islanders put him in. So no, but I did yell about it a lot. So I was very, very lucky to be invited last week to the dinner portion of the Companions in Courage Foundation annual golf outing. And when I was invited by the foundation, I said, you probably should come for the dinner because it's going to be a memorable night. And I kind of figured. And there were some other clues along the way. But I was very excited to be there when John Ledecky announced that Pat LaFontaine will be the 17th person to be in the Islanders Hall of Fame. It'll be on Saturday, December 13th, when the Islanders take on the Tampa Bay Lightning. Pat LaFontaine will go in. I can tell you right now, I hope my family is listening. Don't make any family plans that night. I hope we're all there on December 13th, the whole Schwartz family, to see Pat LaFontaine going into the Islanders Hall of Fame. And after that dinner event last Thursday, I had a chance to catch up with number 16, Pat LaFontaine. Well, you waited a long time for a night like tonight. For you, what does it mean to get the Hall of Fame nod at your event, at your golf outing here tonight?
I mean, it's extra special because we're raising money to help kids in children's hospitals, and the New York Islanders were kind enough to induct me into the Hall of Fame. I think I'm obviously super humbled, and I'm very appreciative with tremendous gratitude. I think when you get a little bit older, like me, yeah. I mean, I came to Long Island 41 years ago. When things happen quickly, one of the things Al Arbor was always good at, he made you earn it. Nothing came to you easy. Right. You have to earn it, and then once you earned it, you appreciated it. So I've always been a person of principle, and sometimes, principle takes a little time. And this time in my life, this is really meaningful. I've got 2 grandkids now. I got to just hang out with all the former Islander guys, and it was very kind of, I don't know what the right word is, but it's very memorable. All the years, my wife's from Huntington. I married a Long Island girl. We live on Long Island. So I think it kind of hit me as a sense of gratitude, a sense of tremendously honored because of the guys that are already there. I was fortunate, somehow very lucky, to go into the Hockey Hall of Fame, the U.S. Hockey Hall of Fame. Nobody gets in this game trying to get into a Hall of Fame. But I have to say, I just turned 60 in February. So to have this kind of later in my life is actually very meaningful and very special. And to have all the guys here, it's a night I'll never forget. And it's very nice that John Ledecky, the ownership, the organization, I'm just extremely grateful.
And I can stop screaming about it now because, I feel like, whether it's writing or going on the fan and talking about it or my podcast, I could stop talking about it now.
Well, it's funny how things in life work out, and things always come full circle at the right time. Our family is big in values and morals, and we've always loved our time. I'm grateful to the Torrey family for bringing me here to Long Island. Al Arbor, Brian Trotche, Mike Bossy, Clark Gillies, Bobby Nystrom, all the guys, Eddie Westfall, all the guys that were here tonight that support this event. But it's about the journey, and it's about the players you meet, the relationships. It's about the things you go through. And then to kind of have this when all the guys are here, and our focus is to help kids in Children's Hospital. And
you raised a lot of money for that tonight.
Raised a lot of money tonight, and that's what's most important. So this is just a separate bonus, and it's meaningful to a player who's been retired, I think, 27 years now. Yeah. So I'm grateful, and it's where I started my NHL career. It's where I live. Like I said, I married a girl from Long Island. I live here on Long Island. It's been a part of our roots, so it's very meaningful.
December 13th, have you thought about what that day is going to be like for you? There's a lot of important names up in that Hall of Fame already.
I actually went to a concert with my daughter to see Chris Stapleton, and it's the first time I noticed all the names. And now I know there's like a Ring of Honors, and I was looking at Trotz and Brent Sutter, and I went, oh, wow, that's very cool. And, you don't play this game. You play to be a good team player, be a good, ambassador of the sport, and you hope to win a championship. you never think of your name being in a Ring of Honor or a Hall of Fame. It's just a wonderful bonus. And like I said, I'm humble and extremely grateful at this time in my life.
All I can say is congratulations on the honor of going in the Islanders Hall of Fame. Congratulations on everything you've done with the foundation. I know that's near and dear to your heart, and the most important thing today. Just a tremendous night for you. I'm really happy for you.
Thank you, Pete. And what I found out was this December 13th game is going to be the charity of choice is Companions in Courage.
Okay.
And that even makes it more special and meaningful to me that not only are we going to celebrate that, but we're going to be celebrating raising money for special kids in Children's Hospital, which is near and dear to my heart, and a stepping stone that hockey allowed me to do, to be a part of something to give back service and purpose. Super grateful.
Awesome.
Thank
you so much.
Thank you, Pete.
That was pretty cool. Now I've been pretty lucky to be at a number of great events over the years. That was pretty cool. I have to tell you, and I don't usually pat myself on the back, but I will this time. There were only 2 media members that were invited to that last Thursday.
Oh, wow.
Me and Alan Krita of the Associated Press. And that meant a lot to me because I've had a great relationship with Pat and his foundation. Jim Johnson, by the way, who runs that foundation, and he's going through some stuff on his own right now, so thoughts and prayers are with him and his family. But when I got that email from him and he came up to me at the event and said, when we knew this was going to happen at this dinner, you were the first person that we thought of. And I had chills thinking about that, goosebumps. Yeah, I'm so much looking forward to December 13th where Pat finally gets into the Islanders Hall of Fame. And it's I couldn't be happier to help, not help, but just to be a part of that last week. That was pretty cool. Coach's Collectibles items of the week. The first item is a Ben Rice autographed and framed 8x10 photo. Ben Rice and the Yankees opening up the playoffs tonight, the wild card round against the Red Sox. Now, the second item is a Yankees Core 4 5-piece World Series ring set. So the Core 4 that won 5 championships with the Yankees, you get those 5 rings, and I think that would really look nice in the Schwartz house. I don't think the other 3 people I live with would like to see it, but I might just have to get that one as well. Coach's Collectibles, your number one source for 100% authentic sports memorabilia and live public autograph events. For more information, visit coachescollectiblesny.com. Use code SPORTSBASH for free shipping. Speaking of the Yankees, Game 2 watch party with Coach's Collectibles at Bull Smith's Tavern in Smithtown, Wednesday, October 1st, 6 o'clock, with Yankee World Series champion Doc Gooden, former Yankees World Series champion. So Doc Gooden watch party at Bull Smith's Tavern, Smithtown, Game 2 for Wednesday, October 1st at 6 p.m. It is time for the Sports Bash Media poll question of the day, and that means Tony Walker is going to participate in this. We post a new poll question every Tuesday and Thursday on the Sports Bash Media X/Twitter page. All right, Met fans, including Tony Walker, who is to blame for the Mets not making the playoffs? And you have 4 choices. The owner, Steve Cohen, the president of baseball operations, David Stearns, the manager, Carlos Mendoza, or the players. And Tony, you are the Met fan. I will give you the first chance to answer that question.
Can I do all the above?
Well, you could. Yeah, I guess you could. I mean, if you commented, but you know what happens when I ask people to comment on the poll, they never. You want to do all the above? You're fine. I could write you in for all of the above.
If I have to pick one, I think I'll
Tony,
actually go with Mendoza.
We're gonna write that in. We'll make sure that Connor Kalb gets that noted on the Sports Bash Media X/Twitter page. I'm gonna go with the players, Tony.
Oh, yeah.
Steve Cohen wrote the checks. David Stearns went out and got guys whose back of the baseball cards were good. And Carlos Mendoza was given the tools that he was given. To me, this is all on the players. Quite frankly, it is. Because a lot of these guys played like dogs during the season. It's at critical times of the year. And I know you've questioned Carlos Mendoza's decisions at times, and I get that. But you had guys on this team, whether it's the Jeff McNeils of the world, that just didn't come through when they really did. The starting pitching failed. in a lot of ways until they trusted the kid. The one thing I will say about David Stearns is he probably waited too long to start bringing the kids up, because they could have had Nolan McLean up a little bit earlier, and they didn't. So that would be the only thing I would say about that. But I'll go with the players. Now, as far as some upcoming business is concerned, we will not have a show on Thursdays, the Yom Kippur. So it starts on Wednesday night, ends on Thursday night. So we are going to move Thursday's show to Friday at 1 p.m. And we'll talk some hockey again on the show. Daily Faceoff host and digital reporter Johnny Lazarus is going to join me on the show on Friday. Johnny also provides content for Bleacher Report, Open Ice, and he's a college hockey analyst for Nesson, the New England Sports Network. So we look forward to having Johnny on the show. I got to see him at the Islander game last night, and he's going to come on. We're going to have a good time on Friday. We are going to announce our next FOP right now, and I'm very excited about this, being on the Islanders subject. And I've seen him at some events recently, and I said, how about coming on the show and coming in studio and sharing some of your great stories about your time with the Islanders? And he's going to do it on Tuesday, October 7th, when I'm joined in studio for the entire hour by former New York Islanders equipment manager Joe McMahon. He has some great stories to share. We're going to talk a lot about the Islanders, and we'll also talk about his annual McMahon family golf outing. In 2001, Joe lost his mother to brain cancer, and then his 18-month-old son Aiden to liver complications, which is why they set up the foundation and they have these great events. So we'll have Joe in studio next Tuesday for the entire hour. The 4th annual Marty Lyons Foundation Gala is on Thursday, November 13th at the Bourne Mansion in Oakdale. For more information, go to martylyonsfoundation.org. That will do it for today's edition of Sports Bash, presented by TicketBash.com and Ryan Anthony's Heating and Air Conditioning Service. Thanks to my guests, Brian Solomon and Pat LaFontaine. Thanks to Tony Walker, everyone here at Governors. Thanks to our social media coordinator, Connor Kalb. Sports Bash is sponsored by the Embassy Diner in Bethpage, Coaches Collectibles, and by the Marty Lyons Foundation. Thanks to everyone for watching and listening. Sports Bash is back on Friday at 1. And with Grandpa Dave's pennant, I say, let's go Yankees. Have a good day, everybody.